Welcome to the Equity Partner episode 2 with Howe Rice. Today, Howe is joining to tell us a little bit about his ownership in Chick-Fil-A franchises. Chick-Fil-A, as you most know, is a well-known restaurant and brand and franchise throughout the U.S. and beyond. And Howe's been an owner since 1997. He started a Chick-Fil-A franchise at the ripe age of 32 years old in Central Virginia. He's the owner of 3 Chick-fil-A franchises in Central Virginia and leads a staff of over 200 employees. In an article I read, Howe started with minimal cash, monumental prayers, and his goal to use the business as a source of revenue while he focused his duties as a church youth director. So Howe, thank you for joining. I think Howe's most important accomplishment is his character and his dedication to his family. That's what I'm most inspired by. His business acumen is an aspiration as well, but I would like to welcome him to the Equity Partner. Thank you, Howe.
Hey, Jeff, man, thanks for having me. I love being able to kind of talk about what has been going on in my life, and it's just been really special to get to know you. You know, you're only about 100 yards away. I could probably throw a football down there and hit you since we live in the same neighborhood. So
that's right. That's right. Well, thank you for joining. Just to tell you and to tell the people a little bit about the Equity Partner. It was created primarily as an online platform to share information, to give insight, and be helpful to future leaders that aspire to either be entrepreneurs or individuals that want to improve their financial health. So I invited you to join just because I respect and admire what you've done with your business. And really, this conversation is about not only your individual character that created the entrepreneur you are, but how you deal with life as an entrepreneur and an owner of a Chick-fil-A franchise. And so what I want to start off with is just tell me a little bit about your personal background and how you became an owner and operator of the Chick-fil-A franchise.
Yeah. I grew up down in Southwest Virginia, Abingdon, a small little town right on the Tennessee line, kind of where everything comes together down there, Tennessee, North Carolina. Grew up there, went to undergrad in that area, went to play baseball at a school and ended up getting a degree. I still don't know exactly how that happened, but so finished a degree at King College down in Bristol, Tennessee. Then went to grad school in Pennsylvania. Thought that I wanted to be a dean of students. Got a master's degree that kind of lined up with that. That master's degree was in counseling. So I didn't make the best counselor, I learned about myself. But it was a degree I needed. And it's pretty amazing looking back now, that counseling degree comes in very handy when you have a number of employees, probably more so than an MBA. Just, we get things accomplished through people, right, and business. And so knowing how to kind of motivate folks, kind of what makes them tick is really important. And so I look back now and I'm really thankful to get that counseling degree. So I got this counseling degree. I was working in the field at George Mason University, and the entrepreneurial bug bit. I was 28 years old, 27, somewhere in there, and knew I would have to go back and get a PhD if I really wanted to be a dean of students and live in this higher ed world, and wasn't too excited about that prospect. And so I started looking around, and I actually started a little business, a golf business on the side, and then was like, man, I really, really enjoy this. I loved everything about it. I love the numbers. I love the people, the people aspect, the growing sales, all that. And I'm like, gosh, I just want to be able to figure out how to do something full time. And believe it or not, I think I'm the only guy in America that came to Chick-fil-A through an ad. They had placed an ad in a Christian men's magazine back in the late 90s, and I saw this ad, and I was like, wow, this could work. Because part of my background too, while I was in undergrad, I served as a youth director at a local church,
Mm-hmm.
And so loved working with kids and was really passionate about that. But also I could see, I wanted a business. I wanted to be able to support a family. And, if I ever got married one day, which I was hoping, finally found a lady. But I figured, if she wanted to stay at home, that I'd like to have the ability to kind of help that happen. And so I could see it. I just needed to figure out how to shape it.
Yeah.
And Chick-fil-A came along, and the more I learned, the more I was like, wow, this could really work. I loved the business. I loved the values. I had worked long enough, and I'm sure you feel this way sometimes. You work for a company, and maybe their values don't match your values.
Yeah.
You see things that you're like, wow, I'm not sure that's who I am, and I don't want to be that person. But yet you're working for folks like that. And I was like, you know what? I want to work for myself. I don't want to do that anymore. And I want to work with people that I choose.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was kind of my journey. And, started in 97. I was 28 years old, and, one restaurant, and then that grew to two. And then we just kind of kept going from there. And, we're at three right now, which in the Chick-fil-A world is a pretty, it's most guys have one or two. So
Yeah.
we feel really blessed to have three, and but it definitely keeps me busy and keeps me hopping.
Oh yeah.
But in the meantime, through that, I met an amazing lady, and she agreed to marry me, and so I married way over my head, just like you did, Jeff. So yeah. So and now we have three amazing boys, a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and feel like the most blessed man on the planet.
Yep. And your family is extremely important to you, just the same way it is to me. And one thing about family, and you talked a little bit about just your journey from where you started to where you are now. Talk to me a little bit about, was there anybody that motivated you or inspired you to be an entrepreneur, or what was kind of the driving factor to say, that's kind of what I have an interest in being when I grow up? Or you didn't know that it inspired or motivated you, but you look back and say that was the inspiration to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's really good. I don't know that I could look back and specifically say there was a person. I mean, certainly I came from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather, my uncles, my dad owned businesses, but I never really could say that I had a desire to do that. I was just trying to figure out life. I feel like pretty much until you're about 25, you're just an idiot. You're just trying to you're just trying to survive and figure things out. And so, yeah, I think I just had this internal drive and ambition. I could finally see when I got in my mid-20s, I could see it more clearly that, I wanted to be the guy making the decisions,
Yeah.
right or wrong, succeed or fail, all those things. And I just felt like I had been in all these positions on college campuses, or I did work for a couple different companies over the years. And I was like, man, I'd like to do it on my own. I just got to figure out the right business model. And I love the franchise. They figured a lot of stuff out for you, and you can kind of plug and play with that. And I love that. I thought it was a great model for me. And then I looked at, obviously Chick-fil-A. 23 years ago, Chick-fil-A wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
And I feel really blessed to have gotten in at the time that I got in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I could today. It's even more competitive and crazy today.
Oh,
And so I feel really blessed. So I don't think there was ever. I think a lot of that comes from just an internal drive. Some people have an internal drive, and some folks don't.
Yeah.
And I see that over and over with my employees. There's part of my role is to help inspire them. Part of my personal mission is to inspire people to find their God-given purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do that. I get to work around all these, 16-year-old to 24-year-olds. And I hope that I can inspire them to think differently about life. And sometimes I'll find one that has a real drive and an ambition. And, I've been fortunate enough to help them get their own franchises within the Chick-fil-A world.
Okay.
I have a leadership program that's built around college kids coming to work for me, and then who do have that ambition to own their own Chick-fil-A franchise. And so a number of them in that role right now, and it's so exciting. That's what gets me excited about getting up every day now. I get to spend time with these incredibly bright, motivated folks who, and they bring so much to the business. One day your son and daughter, Jeff, hopefully you would look and say, wow, I want my kids to work there because of all these young, dynamic thinkers that Howe has working for him, not because of him, but because of who he has working for him that can inspire my kids to think differently.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of our role as a leader, is to help the people around us think differently, and we get to help shape that. So.
Yeah, and I think that's and one, you can expect my daughter to be filling out an application in some years to come. So,
Great.
Discuss a little bit about just the role of a franchisee, the requirements of a franchisee. If somebody was an aspirational owner, what would you tell them about the role, and then also what would you tell them some of the requirements might be?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's it is very competitive financially. It's not too hard to get in the door. Most people can, Chick-fil-A really will tell you they're looking for not somebody with a big wallet, but with somebody with the right leadership experience and the right heart, that are really going to come in and really care about their employees and their community. And so as much leadership experience as you can bring to the table, the better. You're competing against other people with tons of leadership experience, former generals and former, guys who have tons of business experience, or ladies who have tons of business experience. So it depends where you are in life. I think, and I certainly don't work for the corporate office, but from what I see, there's really a couple of avenues. Either you're 40 or 45 and you have tons of business experience, or you're 23 or 24 and you're just kind of starting out.
Yeah.
If you're somewhere in the middle, it just doesn't seem to work as well, or at least from what I've seen recently.
Mm-hmm.
But they really just look for people with the right values, entrepreneurial, and the way they think. They want to grow. They want to grow themselves. They want to grow others around them, and obviously they want to grow the business. But it all starts with ourselves. If you're not growing yourself, if you're not the type of person that's growing yourself, and we grow through the books we read, the people we meet, and the experiences that we have. If you're not intentional with that, you're probably not going to have a shot at a Chick-fil-A franchise. So, the things that most businesses are looking for, which is what's your balance sheet look like?
Yeah.
They don't care as much about. They feel like if they can find the right cultural fit, then everything else is going to kind of work out. Yeah. And no, you certainly need business acumen to be in the role, but I've learned a lot of that can be developed as long as there's interest in it. And so that's kind of what I would say. You've got to be the right type of person, as who you are at the core is really important to them. So
one thing I read was that I guess you mentioned it too, just about how hard it is sometimes to get in because you have so many applicants. But it said something about less than 0.5% of the applicants get approved to be a franchisee. I don't know the dynamics behind those numbers, but at the same time, that's a small percentage. And what do you think has attributed to your success as a multi-unit operator? Because owning multi-units has its own dynamics that people don't think about. But what has helped you be a great operator?
Yeah, I think, I guess it was about 10 or 12 years ago, I read Patrick Lencioni is one of my favorite authors. He wrote a book called The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive. And I think when I really defined, okay, what is my role in this business as it's growing? I got to clearly define my role, what I do, um, how I do it. And this book kind of helped me kind of define that. And so I really learned that, I get things done through people. My role is to make sure that I'm casting vision,
Mhm.
um, that I'm making sure that we're living out the values that we've defined, you know. That's really my role. We have almost, well, we're right in the middle of a crisis right now, but we have about 300 employees at this point, but I only have three direct reports.
Huh.
And so three people report directly to me. So I spend a lot of time with those three, and then about a total of about 12 that I really pour into um, on a lot of different ways, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
hire executive coaches for these folks. Um, we read books together. We have experiences together, very intentional experiences. I'll fly them. We'll go down to Houston and visit some franchisees down there because they're doing some stuff that are really neat. Or I'll fly them to Atlanta and we'll spend time at the home office. Just want to broaden the way they think. And so my role is more casting vision, helping people think bigger. They then tend to bring the other leaders along with them. So, no, I think that's evolved over the years, and it's hard. I think it's hard for, and I notice this in the Chick-fil-A world, especially with younger franchisees who end up in a relationship with them for some reason, and we we they tend to want to get into the details of every little detail in the business, and they feel like if they don't know all those details that they're failing.
Yeah.
And I think that we've got to figure out a way. You can't scale your business if you're caught in every detail. I consider myself a generalist. I generally need to know what's going on. So I have my finger on the pulse, but I don't need to understand everything in my HR world or everything in my marketing world. I just need to make sure that they line up with who we are, why we exist, and where we're going.
Yeah.
And as long as they're lining up with that, and I'm using those filters for them, what I find is I teach them how to think on their own, and I'm not having to make all those decisions for them.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that I do well is I don't let my ego get in the way that I need to make the decision. I want them making decisions, right? That line up with mission, vision, values, and then I'm going to be happy and I'm going to see the business flourish. But I think a lot of guys can't get there. They can't quite get to that point where they can let go and let their people empower their people to make great decisions. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to get your folks there. It takes you pouring into them, helping them shape the way they kind of think about the business.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
That's extremely helpful. I mean, I think I think that is what separates a multi-unit franchise owner from a single unit franchise owner, because sometimes if people are so analytical or extremely into what they're doing, they can't, just like you said, they can't empower other people to be able to run the show and keep them accountable. So I think that's a great point. You said one thing about just about how this current environment, this coronavirus COVID-19 environment has impacted your company. Talk a little bit about how it's impacted your company and what you've done to maintain all those values that you spoke about.
Yeah. Wow. I think that this is our time to shine. We Chick-fil-A corporately about a year ago unveiled our new mission as a company, and it's to be the world's most caring company.
Mhm.
And so we just think this has lined up perfectly for us to show the greatest care. And so some things that I'm just doing personally within the business is, and I get so excited about this, and my team gets excited about it for us to show care. So we start with our employees. If if the folks that work for us, the team members, don't feel like we care for them, then they're not going to care for the guest. So we have to make sure that. So we've just done some things with them. I'll give you an example. We're bringing in, yesterday we brought in another local business that serves hot dogs and hamburgers.
Oh,
and he set up literally outside the restaurant, and then the employees could go out and order a hamburger or a hot dog. So what we're doing there is accomplishing two things. We're helping his business, right? Which is, we want to show the community. Part of our mission is to impact the community positively. So we get, this guy almost was crying. He couldn't believe that we would order $400 worth of food from him to feed our employees. But yet that's what we want to do. We want to take care of the employee and take care of our community too. So that's just something that we're doing. We are looking at going in and feeding, and this is something that all the Chick-fil-A guys in Richmond, we're gonna target the frontline hospital workers, the doctors, the nurses. We're gonna go in and feed them for free is the plan. So over the next week and a half or so, we're trying to find some dates. We're trying to coordinate. Obviously, logistically, it's tough, but that's something that we're gonna do. And then something that we just done personally. I have. My wife and then some of the marketing folks are literally calling our top 500 customers one by one and just saying, we're just checking in on you. Is there anything we can do for you? That could be go get groceries for you, to, hey, we could bring you a meal to your house if you just like nothing. Like, and what we're also doing is like adding free food to their app when they say, hey, my favorite thing, I do miss my lemonade, but we're going to add lemonade to your app. So next time you're in, it's free and it's on us. And Jeff, I'll tell you, they give me updates on different calls, and lots of times the calls just, people are like, wow, I can't believe you would call and just check on me. And we did call an elderly lady, and she said, I appreciate it so much because you are the only person that's called and checked on me. No one else has called and checked on me. And I'm like, wow. And so we get to step into that. And so we're calling her every week and checking in on her and making sure she's doing okay. And more than anyway, just to show care, and so that's some things that we're doing right now. Obviously, I could go through the list of things that we're being really careful. Obviously, in the restaurant, we split the team into two. So there's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday crew and a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday crew. Just trying to social distance, all those things. We have outside hand washing stations now. Every day it just seems like we learn a little bit more, and then we can add a little extra layer of protection as we continue to learn how to deal with this. All of us just kind of figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, I think we all have been impacted in some way, shape, or form. A lot of businesses have taken, precautions, as many precautions for their staff as possible, but they've also been impacted a great deal just by the changes. But what you're doing sounds great, because it's still allowing you all to be connected to the community. It sounds like Chick-fil-A has a lot of flexibility with their entrepreneurs and allowing them to be involved. Without a lot of red tape. Would you say that's true?
Yes, no doubt. It is part of our DNA to just go do some crazy stuff. They tend to look for, I think, with people that think generously, and generosity works. I mean, it just works. And I think it does wonders for the heart when you start thinking about other people and not yourself. And sales are down 25%, 30%, right? Yeah. There's guys that are in a lot worse position than I am. And you and I know businesses that are in a lot worse position. And but I think that's the time to be generous, to be looking for how can we have an impact. And, that always comes back to you. I think that's the way God designed it. He wants you thinking about others and not about yourself. And so I think when we do that, there's a blessing in there that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. One thing I wanted to ask you about, especially going throughout this time, is who do you consider your team of trusted advisors, and what makes you value their opinions?
Yeah, that's really good. Um, yeah, so I think as as a guy, um, and I've heard this over the years. We need to have a wingman, right? You got to have somebody that you lean on and lean into, and um, I think that for me, I need instead of a wingman, I need a bullpen. you know, I need like a lot of guys that for me, I look for uh, the spiritual aspect of a person is really, really important to me. Um, I have a group of guys from church, and that we lean into. Are we being the husbands that we're called to be? Are we being the fathers that we're called to be? And man, they will call me out. I'm telling you, man, they are not afraid to call you out if something's going on that shouldn't be, or if you're not being the husband or father that you need to be. So trusted advisors there, number of guys that I lean into. I do have a mentor who's, I'm 51, he's 71. And I get to meet with him every other month for 2 or 3 hours. And he's just the guy that I tell him, like, when I grow up, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable businessman, loves his family, has an amazing marriage, and amazing kids. And so I'm like, I want to follow guys like that, and I want to learn from them. And and then what I love about him is, so he's 71. He has a mentor who's 91.
Oh yeah.
So and I'm like, man, he's still wanting to grow and learn. And so I think it's that attitude of growing and learning that's so important there. Yeah, so I have advisors like that, and then a lot of folks in the Chick-fil-A world. Um, that we lean on each other a lot. Part of a CEO forum
Okay.
through the Virginia Council of CEOs,
Okay.
and that group has been amazing. I just really love being a part of that group. I'm part of a group also, guys who own. There's 8 of us in the group through Needle's Eye Ministry. So all these are Christian business owners and trying to navigate, like, how do we live out our values, how do we live out our Christian values daily in our business, or and kind of hold each other accountable there. So for me, that iron sharpening iron, where we are around each other, you hear ideas, you're like, man, that guy's doing some things really well. We've got to be out there hearing that stuff to help shape the way we think.
Yeah.
And so we learn through the people we meet. And so I'm really intentional with that. And I spend a lot of time outside the business meeting with guys like you. I mean, I love when you and I get together for breakfast and hear what you're thinking, not only business, but family and all those things. And so we need to do that. We need to be intentional with it. It won't happen on its own if we're not intentional. Yep.
Yeah, I think you are who you surround yourself with, and I think it's important to have a good group of guys or group of people in general, that you can lean on and get advice from and help you. And that's what it sounds like you've done. And I know we've talked about it a great deal. And this complements our morning coffee that we have every once in a while to just talk about life and business as well.
That's right.
One important thing that comes up too that a lot of people want to know about is what tools have you used to kind of help you manage money, both personally and also professionally? Again, there's a lot of business owners right now that are trying to figure out, what they can do to help themselves, but it's also individuals to say, what can I do to manage my money better? So what have you used in your life that's been advantageous for you?
Yeah, when I saw this question that you had, I'm like, man, I'm not sure I'm the guy to talk to about this. I, have made a lot of mistakes over the years. Have always kind of been a risk taker, and sometimes risk takers pay the price.
Okay.
But I think as I've gotten older, I kind of have a philosophy that when I think about money and the future, first of all, I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I love what I do, and as long as the Lord gives me the health, I plan to just keep working, and maybe I'll I'll just dine the restaurant one day. They just find me at a table or something. maybe it's before we're supposed to have coffee, Jeff, and you'll find me laying over a table or something in there. But I do think a lot about legacy for my family, and I do want to build wealth for them and over time. Now, I don't want to spoil my children, and we could have a whole 45 minutes just on that. Like, how do we walk through, especially being a little more affluent and not spoiling our kids. But I do think about legacy, so I do want to leave things well for them. So think of it almost as three different kind of pools of money. I have a guy who manages money for me. It's very safe. Another guy who manages money for me. It's a little more risky and a little more international or a little more outside the box thinking. And then I do the other third on my own, just with some real estate and another partner where we've built a few houses, we've flipped a few, we've kept a few for rental. So I think of it kind of as a three-legged stool. And right now I'm really thankful, as bad as the market's gotten beat up, my one guy who's real safe, that 1/3 of my money is very safe, And so, not having all my eggs in one basket, I guess over the years, I've learned that, we're gonna face things like this. These cycles somehow occur, right? We can look back, I started investing, when I was in my late 20s, and you had the '01 dot-com bubble, and then 7 or 8 years later, you had the banking crisis, and now here's 10 years later, so hey, I'm not the smartest cookie in the jar, but I can see there's some cycles here, and so we need to think about that and protect our wealth as best we can. But I do think it's also, it could be some really good buying opportunities right now. What's it look like a year from now? What's the real estate market look like a year from now? No, banks are getting ready to tighten down a little bit on requirements, and so what's that look like as more people are locked out of being able to purchase a home? So sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole there. You're much better guy to talk about that than me.
No, no, you are mentioning great points. Those are the same things that I'm thinking about as well. Between the stock market, the real estate market, and you're right, banks are tightening up. I just read an article about JP Morgan Chase tightening up their requirements for real estate purchases. So you do have to think long term about the investments that you make today, because it could impact you in a positive or negative way. So I completely agree with your statement. If you were to talk to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self, being new to franchising, also with managing money? What advice would you give a younger Howe Rice to say, you should do this instead of doing this, to make your life a little bit better?
Yeah, that's good. I think I would talk to my younger self a lot about patience. The impatience of youth and what that can cost you. The impatience with your family, the impatience with getting to where you want to be. And, I think it's the journey getting there that's so rich, and it's where we learn, and it's what makes it very, really awesome when you do get there. So I think I would definitely talk to my younger self a lot about being more and more patient. Early on, I think that I wasn't the learner that I am now. I think as I've matured, I've really just fallen in love with reading, making sure that I'm learning. I'm reading articles all the time. I'm trying to have new experiences. I was getting ready to hire a new executive coach, which is probably going to be on hold this year after this. But meeting with some new people. I joined the CEO Forum last year just for that intent. I want to meet some new people, some new guys who are guys and gals that are thinking differently about their businesses. And so just being really intentional early on. I wasn't. And, I had a situation where a guy really challenged me And I got to tell you that because, there's certain moments in our life that we can look back that were so important in our life, and it changed our direction. And I was on the back porch, and it was some guys from church, and there was this one guy that nobody liked. His name was Marty. And nobody liked Marty. And I don't even know how he showed up by my house, but Marty was at my house, and all the guys were on the back porch, the girls were inside. I was grilling some steaks or something. And, it was like 32, business was great. Was newly married. And I was playing golf for 5 days a week. I go in for a few hours in the morning, I would leave, and my handicap was looking really good. I could whip you, Jeff, I could whip you left-handed back then. I'm just kidding.
You probably could.
Yeah. But, and I look back, and I was really kind of bragging. I was kind of telling everybody this, hey man, look at me, I've arrived. And this guy, Marty, stood up and he goes, man, that's so sad. And I was like, everybody stopped and looked around, and he said, man, God has so much more for you than that. It's really sad. And, I got mad. I thought about throwing a Marty out on his head right then. But I look back, and that combined with some things that my wife was saying to me, really changed the way I thought. And it changed the way I thought about the business isn't there to serve me. I'm there to serve the people in the business, my employees, my community. And so instead of it serving me, I'm serving them. And when that changed, same thing with my family. My wife's not here I'm here to serve her. And if I'm thinking I'm here to serve her and she's thinking she's here to serve me, man, that works out really, really well. And so that's something that has really, really impacted my life, and it really made me change the way I think. And I'm really thankful for Marty. Haven't seen him since. I don't even know if I could pick that out of a lineup, but I'm really thankful for that moment.
That's a great story. I mean, especially about patience. I think there are a lot of young aspirational people. I was thinking about this kind of coming into it. You're so aspirational. You have all these short-term goals, and you don't have any long-term goals. And if you don't reach them as soon as possible, then you force your way in to make something happen. And I think now I've learned. I remember being a college student applying for jobs, and I had education, but I didn't have experience. And I didn't understand the value of experience at that time, because I went to school for 4 years. I'm supposed to get out and be hired as a CEO or some executive for a team. And so now, after I've had experience, now I appreciate the education, but I also appreciate the experience. And so I think your point is great.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Great. But how, I have one last question before we end. It's in previous conversations, I think most people don't understand the operations of a Chick-fil-A franchise, and that, a franchisee is a franchisee, and you can reap major benefits as an operator. But when you go into succession, you don't necessarily own the assets or own the rights to be able to sell your franchises. And so what have you done to diversify your investments for post-retirement? You spoke a little bit about real estate, but what have you done to diversify so that way you do have something to pass on to your kids?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, certainly some real estate assets. I do have an office building. We have a few, my partner and I have a few homes where we kind of depends on kind of what the market's doing. Mm-hmm. But we flipped a few, we built a few, we've sold a few, those sorts of things. And then I just do kind of some traditional, like I said, I have two guys that are the guys that I depend on for my investing. And so that's how I plan to do it, is to really kind of have that stool of the real estate investment along with some good investments, more traditional stuff, right? With mutual funds, 401k type stuff. And
are your kids involved in the business as well?
Yeah, actually, yes. And to your point about the business and the way it works, at least with Chick-fil-A, is almost like I own a management company, and that company has contracts to operate Chick-fil-A restaurants.
Yeah.
And no, while I cannot directly pass that off to a son or daughter, they would be certainly in line if something happens to me. Certainly first in line to be considered. And you see that happen pretty often. But Chick-fil-A does guard their rights. If it's not a good business person,
Yeah.
they're not going to allow that to occur.
Yeah.
So, and I don't blame them. I really don't. I think, some other franchises where it's just all, passed on through family, and sometimes family doesn't have the ability or the interest, right, to do that. And so, so I think it's pretty smart on their part.
That's right. Well, Hal, I've taken enough of your time. I know you have things to do. I appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me. I hope that anybody that gets a chance to watch this has gained a wealth of information, just like I have. Hal, you are a great operator, but you're also a great person, a great franchisee, and a great friend. And I appreciate you for joining me on the Equity Partner. And hopefully this will help somebody so I can be a partner in their success. So thank you again, Howe.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Jeff. I love that if there's a book out there called The Go-Giver, and it talks about if we can make deposits in other people's lives, how rich that is, and how we always get somehow down the road, we always get a return on that. And I think that's what here is, you're being the go-giver. You're helping make deposits in other people's lives. And man, it's really special. And I love what you're doing. I love your heart. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, Hal. And I hope you have a great day and work through this COVID-19.
Absolutely, man. Thanks. You too. I'll catch you later.
Yep.